This is Magnum TA. Whenever I want to get all the ins and outs of what's going on in wrestling, I listen to InYourHeadOnline.com.
All right, we are back, and we're joined by Jackie Crockett. I want to welcome you to In Your Head.
How y'all doing?
Good, thanks. How you doing tonight?
Great. It's good to talk to y'all.
Yeah, it's good to have you on here. If anyone wants to call in, we said the number earlier. It's 508-644-8503. You can call in and ask Jackie Crockett a question about his time in wrestling, and I'm sure he'll give you a good answer.
Yeah, I've never given an interview where I didn't kayfabe people.
Yeah, that's actually something I wanted to bring up. Was it hard for you, like, because you grew up in wrestling? That, like,
yeah.
When wrestling started to, become more open, when the fans, kind of knew what was going on?
Oh, yeah, in elementary school, I always had kids, oh, yeah, fake, wrestling's fake and stuff. And, I tried to ask my father about it, and he said, no, it's not. He kayfabed me till I actually went to full work for the company full-time.
Mm-hmm.
And, after that, people would ask me about it, I'd say, well, it's sort of like, for those who believe, no explanation is needed. For those who don't believe, no explanation will do.
Right.
I mean, so there's no reason to argue about it. I'd have these people come up, and, doctors and lawyers and stuff. And, oh, your business is fake. And I say, yeah, you're a quack. And people talk about, golf is the only pure sport. And I tell them, well, you ever heard the Las Vegas Open where the amateurs go out and the companies buy their contracts? And they got to do what the company does. Oh, they all get mad at me. So.
Right.
Yeah, I was a real hit at the party.
They don't like when you give it back to them.
Nah.
Do you think wrestling is better or worse, like, that when the fans know the words like kayfabe and heel and babyface and...
No. It takes the mystery out of it.
Yeah.
Before, we were a family company, and we ran it with that in mind. We wanted Ma, Pa, and the kids and Grandma to be able to sit down and, watch the show and be able to enjoy it. You've got good against evil, and eventually good always wins out. But evil always gets his turn every now and then.
Mm-hmm. No.
But it's just, you have a close finish in the middle of the ring, and everybody's, oh, well, this guy could have won, or that guy could have won. You got the rematch next week, and you got your semifinal bouts coming up, starting to draw, put history in them, so they'll be the main event in a week or two. And then everything culminates at the Coliseum.
Right. No, since you grew up in wrestling, did you always know that's what you were going to do? Like, you were going to work in wrestling somewhere?
Well, I kind of always did. I mean, I put posters out when I was a kid. I put the rings up. I sold tickets. I was an usher. My daddy used to take me, like, on Saturday night. We always ran, one of the towns was Spartanburg, South Carolina. And he'd take me down there, and he'd sit me up on the office is right there by the door. The people would come in and had a big sliding wooden door over top of the counter, and I'd sit up on top of the counter and hustle programs. So I've always kind of been in it. Mm-hmm. And I've never been a 9-to-5er.
Yeah.
I was kind of talking with my wife tonight. I said, I've never had a regular job. And then when I started working with the company, I started shooting the interviews. And I did that on 16-millimeter film. And all of the television shows were shot in studio. Mm-hmm. WBT in Charlotte, or WRAL in Raleigh. And so you had that limitation. And then I shot the interviews in an office next to our office at 1111 East Moorhead. And I got kind of tired of listening to these guys saying the same repetitious thing, oh, tonight's the night, or I'm going to do this and that. And so I'd stop and say, listen, let's do something else. Let's do something a little more creative and trying to bring their personalities out, whatever the issue is, and kind of put some color there. And that's, we started, and we got our television truck, and we started doing our own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We went from having like 12 TV stations to when we sold it to Turner, I had 258 that ran my show every week.
Some of the fans say they kind of missed the studio wrestling. You just brought up about filming in the studio. Do you think that was which was like better for like the TV show, like a studio show, or in like?
Oh no. I mean you got a tremendous action going on in the ring. In the studio, you got what 50, 70 people in there,
right?
And you got 3 people clapping. I don't care what's going on in the ring if you haven't got that audio.
Yeah.
The fans, so you can cut to a fan who's excited and, or a group of people, and that helps add the excitement to the people who are sitting at home. Because that's the way I always tried to shoot the thing and edit things out, is for the person who is sitting on the other side of that television watching it, to keep them involved in it. I always kept motion in the shots. I tried directing, but nobody ever shot it the way I wanted to. And when the director was on a wrong camera for something that was going on, I'd call him on it, and he'd switch.
Yeah.
And they always had my camera on an isolated machine, so if they missed something, they could go back to it and, show it after the match is over, or cut to it during the match too. We started doing that, putting it in a box. But we put the action in there.
Yeah, to know how to do that, would you have to know like maybe the finish of the match, or would you rather prefer not to know?
Well, I kind of knew what the finishes were, but I've been watching these guys long enough. I knew what was going on, and I always kept the 2 legal guys. Yeah, I kept the 2 legal guys in the shot, and my camera was going back and forth. I'd jump up on the side of the ring, and if the guy was up, threw the guy outside, and he's getting ready to come off the corner, I'd take the camera off. I would know. I always knew where my horizons were. I didn't have to look through the viewfinder to know what my shot was. And I take the camera, I put it all the way down on the floor, so it looks like a guy's coming from 20 miles away.
Right.
Then as soon as he hits, I just sort of move back with it and keep the flow going.
We're gonna. You go on. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying we got a couple callers here, but I'll finish with what you were saying.
I would go talk to the guys and ask them if there was something special they were going to do. And of course, when I used to shoot the 16 millimeter, you had like 3 minutes and 38 seconds worth of film, so I would have to go in and talk to the guys and say, listen, I need something that you're going to do during the match that you're only going to do once and go into your finish, so that I would be sure and, be able to shoot all of it. But after we got the television with all the other cameras and, if there was going to be a special finish or something special that needed to be shown, I needed to know about it. But most of the time, I just, shot it from the hip.
Do you think that helped that you had, like, you knew all the guys and you said you had, like, a feeling for wrestling itself? Like, if someone else was on a camera who, like, wasn't necessarily a wrestling fan, like, maybe they wouldn't know, what to shoot?
Well, one of the things, we generally kept the same crews with us. We would take our camera guys, some of our technicians and stuff, we'd pick up in the towns, but the camera guys, your key personnel, you take with you. And that way they know what's going on. There's generally 3 handhelds down at the ring. If there was some kind of question as to what they do, they would look over at me, and I'd point them to go up or, this way or that way, and they kind of got a feel for it too. And of course, we're always in contact through headsets. So,
yeah. Let's see. We got Al Kicks on the line here.
Hi, how you doing, Jackie?
Pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing very good, thank you. Just a couple questions, I guess. Why do you think a lot of people consider Gordon Solie one of the greatest wrestling commentators of all time? And I would agree. In your opinion, why do you think he was such a great commentator?
Well, Gordon was a great person to start with. His vocabulary, his understanding of wrestling, and he knew the guys, and he was one of us. We'd have to travel a lot, and you end up with with a lot of history. And Gordon he kept on his sport, and he knew what was needed to be presented, and he did it in a colorful fashion.
There's always a story that he actually got in the ring, and he took some of the moves, so he would be better at calling them, like the figure 4 leg lock, and he would talk about the different points that it would hurt. Did you ever get in the ring and take any of the moves?
No, I got in the ring one time to try to separate a couple of wrestlers. Somebody knocked my ass out.
Right.
That's what I used to do the payroll. But I mean, Gordon, they used to shoot down in Florida at 106 North Albany, and that was where the office was and stuff. And so, yeah, he went down and he really studied his sport, and he was good at it, and he had the vocabulary to back it up.
Would you agree that some people say he's the best of all time? Some people might say Jim Ross or somebody else. Who, in your opinion, who was the best commentator that you get to work with?
Well, Ross is an excellent commentator, but I still think Gordon.
I think he would.
Yeah, he's he could add color when it wasn't there.
Right. What's your second question, Alex?
I actually wanted to ask, I guess, how would you compare, Ole Anderson and Dusty Rhodes as bookers?
They both had their, good points and bad. They were pretty much, neck and neck. Ole was, a little more down-home wrestling kind of stuff, and Dusty, he was a little more colorful, but the booking process was more of a group of people. It wasn't just Ole or Dusty. Everybody was involved in that. They would have wrestlers come in and the discussion of how matches went. Jimmy, David, or myself. It was a group effort. It was not just one guy. I mean, Dory Funk was in there before, and there was a lot of guys through there.
Yeah. Do you have any stories about Ole? Because, Ole's a character that a lot of people have different opinions.
Yeah, I'll tell you one. We were coming back from some small town of South Carolina, and there was Gene and Ole were in a car, and there was a midget, Fuzzy Cupid, was in the car that night, and Fuzzy was standing on the transmission hump in the back seat, and Fuzzy, of course, had a big head of hair. Well, we were, I forget who else was in the car, but I was in the car behind them, and when we came back from these towns at night, we were kind of speeding a lot of times. And I don't forget what small town it was, but we went through there, and we got caught by a traffic light, and a policeman pulled in behind Ole, and Ole still thought it was us, so he started speeding up before they were out of town. And the policeman pulled him over. By the time we got there, the policeman was standing there with his hat off and his hand scratching his head, and Ole's chasing Fuzzy Cupid around the car because he's going to get a ticket because he couldn't see behind him because of Fuzzy's damn head. So it was kind of funny watching him chase the midget in the middle of the night.
It's always fun. Anytime you got midgets involved, I think it's a good time.
Yeah, well, we midgets and the girls, we didn't use that often. It was generally done around the holiday seasons when you sort of bring out everything you got.
Yeah. Thanks for calling in, Kicks.
Thank you very much.
I think I called him Alex one time. That's all right. Area code 479. I'm not sure who this is.
Hey, Jackie, it's TGD back in effect, calling the IYH, and I have to tell Mr. Crockett that his brand of wrestling is, in my opinion, the greatest brand of wrestling that has existed. It's what I grew up on. It stayed true to its classic fundamentals and was always enjoyable to watch.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That means a lot.
I also have to say you talked about the studio as opposed to the big technical crew. I like the small studio taping feel because I felt it gave a more intimate setting for fans. You got more into it because of the smaller, more intimate details. I wanted to ask, is there anything now, currently, product-wise, that you enjoy to watch? Or are you turned off completely?
I don't watch any of the wrestling now. They went through the stuff. They took Dustin, made him gay, chasing guys, and they got the half-naked women running around. Your family can't sit there and watch the show anymore. It's almost like an R-rated movie.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for all the great years that you brought us wrestling fans, and thank you to your family. It always is a joy to go back and look at the older Crockett footage for me. It's what I grew up on, and I will always endorse it till the day I die.
Well, thank you. We couldn't have done it if we didn't have all the great wrestlers we had.
Oh, and,
Ricky Steamboats and Ric Flair when he first came to us. Greaseback hair from Minnesota. I think he had like a striped shirt and checkered pants on. My daddy told me to take him out and get him dressed. And that's why I used to wear a $10 gold piece. And he said, "Oh, he liked that." And I said, "Well, I don't know where I can get you one." He said, "No, I want a 20." And that's where we picked up on that personality of his, and started magnifying that. But yeah, we couldn't have done it.
Got it down to a science, as far as I'm concerned. You all were able to take a guy, and if he showed just like this tiniest little spark of something in addition to what you were already doing, you went to that little spark and you embellished it, and you took it up 10 or 12 notches, and it turned the guy into a star. Crockett could make a star out of almost anybody that was put in front of them. I defy any promotion to do that today.
Yeah, I mean, first you had to have the ability, and that's the thing. You got to take a piece of the person. You can't fake everything.
Yeah, and you're so right, because if
don't you think instead of just making a star at anybody is more like you were saying, you could find the strengths in the wrestler you had.
That's what I meant, and they just had this awesome ability to get the best out of everybody they had on their roster, and there never looked like there was a weak point in a Crockett show. I wish every wrestling promotion would look at that.
Well, luckily we were money making territory to start with, so we had good quality talent coming knocking on our door.
Right.
But we trained people too. I mean, there were guys. We had tryouts down at the Park Center. We used to run that in Charlotte every Monday night, and so the ring was set up, and we'd have guys come down there and try out. And, that's.
I wanted to ask one more question of you, and then I'll let you go. Did you personally have a favorite match in all your years that you did your thing? That you just, when you were filming it, you were like, I can't believe I'm doing this?
I love to watch Johnny Valentine. He was one of the great wrestlers. He would go back into it. Yeah, he would. When I had a chance, I loved to sit down and watch his match. Because he'd give you a forearm that'd rattle your teeth, and you'd see him drop his guard, and you'd hear him, "Hit me!" And the guy, boom, he hits him. And then he'd give him, another forearm, and he'd drop his guard, "Hit me!" He'd do that 3 or 4 times. And you could see him. He got like goosebumps. And it was just priming his pump. And then here he'd go. He'd tear the guy up.
It was great stuff. Thank you so much once again for all the great stuff that you guys provided to us, and you have a great evening. And
thank you very much.
Everybody out there, keep listening to In Your Head Radio, because this is the only place you're going to find great interviews like this.
Thanks for calling in, man.
Yeah.
All right, bye-bye.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. When you talked about Flair and wanting the $20 gold piece when you had the $10 one, I've heard like Tully Blanchard kind of say how they would have like a rivalry where if he bought a new car, then Flair would have to buy a bigger one, and so on.
Oh yeah.
Was that something that happened a lot there? Yeah.
Well, it wasn't a lot, but yeah, I mean Flair and he was always trying to do 150%. He'd party all night and he'd catch the first flight out in the morning. Of course, I was right there with him. He had more energy than I did.
Right. Are you surprised that he wrestled for so long and was still?
I still run into him. I still run into him in Charlotte. And I keep asking him how much do you need, but he keeps getting remarried. I don't know why. Got to pay the bills.
Right.
I mean,
you go on.
His first wife He was slow on his child support. She took him to court. She had one baby in her arms, and she was about 8 months pregnant with the other one. And the judge looked at all that, and he heard the case. And we had 4 or 5 attorneys call us, but they thought they'd never heard a judgment like this. They thought they were back in Dodge City. The judge told him if he didn't make his back payments by sundown, he'd go to jail and never see daylight again. He came down the office, knocking on the door, and he was wanting to get a loan. We told him no. We made him squirm for a while. And then we formed a company in his name and started putting his salary checks in there and giving him an allowance. Mm-hmm. And that's how I ended up saving his money from there and started buying stuff. But,
right.
Yeah,
when the Horsemen started taking off, did you know right away that this was going to be something, special?
Yeah, they clicked together. You had Flair could go off and do a single, and then of course you had the Andersons. They could hold their own. But Gene couldn't do any kind of an interview, and you have Blanchard that could do the interview for him. We tried a couple of guys before Blanchard, mm-hmm. But they clicked, and so you let it run its course.
For me, I always liked Blanchard because he just looked like someone you didn't want to like.
Oh yeah, there's people like that.
Good guy,
Yeah. No, there used to be. We had a manager, Homer Odell, and he was one of those guys you looked at him and you didn't like him. And Homer got in all kinds of mess. Of course, Homer wouldn't. He'd come out, go into a bar, and he'd have these. He liked to wear the old Western Colt 45s. Right. And he'd put them up on the bar and start ordering drinks. And, of course, they'd call the cops, and we'd have to go get Tully out. I mean, Homer. Mm-hmm. But we all lived at the Lake Apartments back then. Jerry Briscoe, me, Two-Ton Harris, and Homer. And we had Sundays off back then. And Homer, he'd wear this flat gambler's hat. He'd have a white tank top T-shirt, boxer shorts, cowboy boots, and he'd have the Colt 45s, and he'd be outside, cooking or barbecuing and stuff. And we'd go in and watch ball games and stuff, just throw the beer cans on one end of the apartment. And one time there were flies that sort of started gathering around the beer cans, so he pulled out his Colt 45, started shooting at them. But we were lucky enough back then. Charlotte wasn't that big, and a lot of the police officers, they worked security with us we did concerts and wrestling and stuff on a regular basis. So we had guys that worked for us, and they come up through the years. So now they were the, sergeants and lieutenants and stuff. And so when they get a call about somebody, the police would call us at home. So we'd come, straighten out the mess.
Mm-hmm. When the Horsemen and when they were taking off, and with some other people too, you would see signs for the Russians. It seemed like some fans were starting to get behind the heels. You would see the guys holding up 4 fingers for the Horsemen, and every once in a while you'd see the Russian flag. Did you see that as a problem? Did they tell you don't shoot that, or did you just
no,
just part of
the
whatever the
you put it out. You put it out there because you got a wide audience out there watching, mm-hmm. And if there's the crowd's getting in and following the heels, that's fine. You got a few of them, and that way the people at home, oh, look at them, that stirs them up some more.
Uh-huh.
When we first started doing television, it was hard to get the wrestlers to work towards the cameras. They were always used to, when they do stuff and they go up on the ropes and trying to get the crowd to, get up and start leering or whatever, booing them, trying to activate the audience. I had to, we go back in the dressing room later, and I had to explain to them, hey, you may have 10,000 people over here, but you got 2 million over here in the empty seats where the cameras are. So you need to turn your action around and face the cameras. So that's, we put the action in the wrestling that is today.
Yeah.
I did.
We got Jose on the line.
Hey, what's up, Jackie? What's up, Incher?
Hey,
Crockett? How are you? All right.
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Okay.
Hola.
Hola. Yeah.
That's about it. That's all I know.
That's okay. I have a question, because I don't know if it was Dave or Earl Hebner, who I was watching his shoot interview not too long ago, and he mentioned how it was decent to work for the Crockett's, but it was a shoot. So he was saying how how the Crockett's in the end really didn't take care of their wrestlers. You know, like if they got hurt, they were on their own pretty much. You know, any truth
Well,
in that? I mean,
well, that's not completely true, but wrestlers are independent agents. They were required to take care of their own insurance and stuff. That wasn't up to us. Now, if they got hurt, we took care of them. We had doctors and stuff there in Charlotte, being that I was at our hometown, and chiropractors, and we were called a homestead territory. When guys moved in here, they brought their families with them. You know, when they were out on the road or something, if the wife had a problem with something, she came by the office. We took care of that stuff. But if somebody got hurt, and they didn't save their money or they didn't have insurance, we would get them the medical attention and stuff. But, beyond that, they didn't have any pension plan or anything.
yeah, I just thought it was kind of interesting how he was talking, how he mentioned that, and then he goes to mentioning about how Vince, way back in the early days, used to take care of his wrestlers, but nowadays he doesn't really do anything for them. You know what I mean? Like pretty much they're on their own.
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know much about Vince. I know about stuff I've heard. I know I knew his daddy, his father, and my father. Helped start wrestling. My father sold him part of the Washington D.C. and above. Because our territory used to stretch up to there, but that was just too far because everybody was driving back then. But I don't.
Go ahead.
Is that something you miss from wrestling, like the travel? Not necessarily the travel, but traveling with the other wrestlers.
Well, you were with them more than you were with your own family, so that became your family, and you watched each other's backs, and if there's a problem, you took care of it. We were the office, but like I said, we were like a homestead territory. Guys that moved their families down here, and they'd work with us for a while, and with the NWA, if your stick sort of ran out in the Carolinas, you could go to Florida or, some of the other territories for a couple of years, but the families would stay here. Mm-hmm. And there again, if the wives and stuff would have a problem while the guys are gone, we'd take care of them.
Early when you brought up the Andersons, Gene and Ole, when we had Brad Anderson on, we talked about this. There's always stories that those guys would, like guys trying to break into wrestling, they would they would stretch them pretty good. Do you have any stories about that?
Yeah. They used to work down the street from our office was the YMCA, and the guys used to go there. There wasn't a lot of health clubs out there, and Ole was working out. And he's telling the story. There's a guy in there. He's a big karate expert, and they always got into the argument. Karate guy can beat up a wrestler anytime. Ole said, well, I got a pretty strong stomach here. Maybe I can let you get a shot at it sometime. And the guy, oh, yeah. So Ole said, well, let's take a couple of weeks. Let me do some sit-ups and stuff. And I'll toughen it up, and I'll give you a free shot. So every time he goes in there, he sees the guy. He does his sit-ups and stuff. And so finally, Ole comes to the day. Says, okay, I'm going to let you take your shot today. And the guy's, he starts, he's all warming up and stuff. He turns around and puts a 10-pound plate in his sweatsuit. And he's right where his stomach's at. And he turns around and says, okay, now get me. So the guy, okay. He hits the plate. He says, pull it down. Say, hey, you can't trust anybody. But, we used to do the tryouts, too. Like I said, we had the ring set up on Monday. And guys would come in and, if they had ability and stuff, we'd give them a ring. Ole would generally wrestle him.
Right.
But if the guy came in there and he's mouthy and stuff, we'd tell him to mark him up, which means you take his nose, you move it over by his ear and stuff, because if you just stretch the guy, he's going to go back to wherever he's from going, it wasn't too much, I'm just a little sore. Everybody, well, that wrestling's not so much. But if he comes over there and, his head's messed up and his nose is over on the side of his face, then you can't say, well, that ain't so much.
Right.
What truck ran over you? And they signed a release and stuff before they did that. We had one guy, I didn't see him to try out. I'm not sure if it was Ole or what, but he was sitting in my father's office and he has his handkerchief on his face, and he looked like he'd been in a fight with bees. He had whelps all over his face. And everything around there is bleeding and all. His handkerchief's all bloody. and he had walked from the Park Center over to our office, which is about 1.5 miles, and people were stopping asking if they wanted to take him to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So, one guy came out of Roanoke one time, he brought a manager down with him, and the manager's running his mouth and stuff, and the guy was really got his ass kicked, and finally Ole was standing there. I was there for this one. Ole's standing there, and he's got the 2 hands full of this guy's hair, and the guy ripped his own hair out getting out of the ring. And they got the manager out there, grab his arm, grab something, get it. The manager's the one that got the guy's ass kicked.
Well, thank you for calling in, Jose. Did you, besides those, there was a Ric Flair shoot interview recently, and he said that he wishes that, like, it was more like that later on in wrestling, where it was harder to get into wrestling. He thought it would have weeded out a lot of the guys that didn't belong. Did you notice, like, later on when you worked for WCW, some of these guys, like, maybe they didn't belong there, or they didn't have respect for wrestling, or they weren't tough enough?
Yeah, I mean, we're, a lot of presentation, no power.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have a wrestling background, athletics. Yeah, they had a nice body and stuff, and they could talk, and they could flip around a little bit, but, you got to, their match consists of about a 28-minute entrance with music and a 30-second match.
Right. Did you have a question from the board, Incher?
Oh, actually, I have a few of my own questions. I wanted to know, how hard was it to cover an event with 2 or 3 rings?
Yeah, it's kind of hard, because your action does flow from one to the other, but who is going to be last in the last ring. Mm. So you kind of stick with them. And the rest of it you cover with your wide shots. Of course, you have more handhelds and stuff, but you have to. There again, you have to keep your eyes open, because you got where they almost get them over the top rope, but the guy kicks back, and you got to keep all the suspenseful stuff in. And when it's happening over 2 or 3 rings, that there's always a lot of action going on. So, there again, you need to stick with your major players.
Mm-hmm. I always thought the 3-ring battle royal there, World War III, that it probably would have worked better if it was like 4 rings, because then it could have been in a big square, almost like one giant ring, instead of splitting up the cameras. You think that would have worked?
Well, then you're also, by doing that, you're limiting the sides if they can throw somebody out. I don't know. There again, the space of it, you put 4 rings together on the Coliseum floor, you're not going to have much room for your ring sides on either side.
Right.
You can have it on the ends, but your sides, you wouldn't have a lot of room there.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe somebody will do it sometime. Yeah.
I know someone wrote in a question. They were saying about if you had any good stories about Roddy Piper. They said you did, but they weren't sure you'd want to tell them.
Well, let's see. Roddy Piper, and Ric Flair. I think Rick had a new SUV or something that had the 4-wheel drive. And the clubs in Charlotte closed at 2:00, and we were out looking for some of the entertainers. And I knew one of the late night restaurants that they would probably be at, so we started going over there. And I was sitting at the red light waiting for it to turn, and Rick gets up behind me, puts his vehicle in 4-wheel drive, and starts smoking his tires, pushing me through the intersection. Well, we didn't see it, but there's a policeman sitting in the gas station over in the corner watching all this. So I pulled down to the restaurant, and I'm kind of, I'm talking to the people in there, and I'm like, where's Rick? He was right behind me. And I kind of drive back to the intersection. I go back to the restaurant. In a couple of minutes, Roddy comes running out of the bushes. He jumped out of the car. They took Rick down and locked him up. He said, oh, okay, yeah. And so I go down to bail him out. And we had a couple of attorneys that we generally worked with. And we're over there knocking on the magistrate's window. Can Rick come out and play yet? Can Rick come? Because he told us he hadn't been charged yet.
Right.
So he's knocking on the window. Hey, can Rick come out and play? He said, no, he hadn't been charged yet. So we go outside, and I'm going to have a cigarette. And Piper's over there pissing on the policeman's tire. We're underneath in the police garage with the cameras and stuff around. So I said, well, I'm going to sit over here. At least somebody's going to have to be here to bail us out. But nothing ever happened to that one.
Right.
And then one time we were over at, we rented a bunch of cars from, I think it was like Avis, and we took all the insurance and stuff. And we were at a club in Independence Boulevard, 2001, and they closed. And we went outside the parking lot and had a demolition derby, just running the cars into each other, tore them all up. And they just, threw the keys back to Avis and said, told them where the cars were. But I'm surprised they did was live.
Someone sent a question. Their name is Doiner. And they were saying they were watching the Starrcade Essential Collection on DVD. It just came out. And there's a match between Stunning Steve Austin and Dustin Rhodes. And he was throwing a punch, and it hit the camera. And Shivani said something about, did Steve punch a camera? And Jesse replies, I'm not sure. We got the gutsy cameraman up there, Jackie Crockett. He'll get in there and stick the camera anywhere. He was wondering if that was you that Steve actually punched during that match.
Probably. I don't remember all the matches.
Right.
I mean, when I got through shooting the show, somebody say, well, who won? And my concentration was the shot, making sure that, both people were in there. I couldn't tell you who was on top and who was on bottom.
Did you get any, ever get, like, any injuries?
Oh, yeah. Manny Fernandez, if I wasn't paying attention to him, he'd throw wrestlers. He'd be out of the ring beating somebody up, and I'm still shooting the legal guy inside. And Manny would pick the wrestler up and throw him into the side of my leg because he wanted me to shoot him.
Right.
And it tore my knee all to hell. I was inside all of the cage matches. I shot all of that stuff. I shot specialty interviews. I shot all of the pay-per-views, the TV shows. I did all of that. If you listen to a lot of Ric Flair's interviews, because when he first came to us, he would always scream, and I tried to explain to him, and he finally listened to me. I said, if you want to attract their attentions now, you have to do the opposite of what you do. If you're screaming, lower your voice. And so what I would do is he would start off slow, and I would have my hand just sort of slowly starting to circle. And I want to build him up. And that energy level would start coming. You'd see him. It would look like he's getting ready to explode. And you'd hear him go, Charles Jackson, let me tell you what's going to happen. That's my full name is Charles Jackson Crockett.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, you got that ain't around some if you're in the action.
Right.
But I didn't break anything or, nothing like that. Just bruises and a lot of aches and pains.
Yeah. And you talked about like doing the promos for Flair or anybody. Who were like some of the guys you really enjoyed doing filming the promos for? Who do you think was like the best for promo guys?
Well, whoever got the most sleep at night. See, our sets were sitting right next to each other. There was no separation. So we usually did the baby faces first and the heels or something, we'd mix it back and forth. So they got to listen to their interviews. And,
Well, was it fun to work with the guys that were more, unpredictable, like you didn't know what they were going to do, or was that worse to work with?
Well, they knew what the boundaries were. So they were going to stick within that because, like we told them before, everybody's watching.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. We used to take 10 days off before Christmas. Everybody's spending their money on Christmas, and the guys would have to spend 10 days with their family. They come back and they start talking about, I'm going to stick a nice stick in this guy's neck, and we'd have to calm them down because their wife's been on their ass for 10 days, and they're just now getting out of the house. Jimmy Valiant, that's one of he was a very quiet-spoken man, but as soon as that red light came on, boom, there he went. He was dancing and he was talking, and he had an on-off switch somewhere I never saw.
Right.
he was a great interview. But I used to bring girls in when Tony Schiavone, maybe we ran a little bit late, so he was having to carry some of the interviews. It was like, I think, Canton, Ohio, we had one interview that was supposed to run like 7 minutes. And so he'd have to be out there talking about the matches and stuff. I've had strippers come in there and be performing over next to me while he's doing his interview, just trying to break him up.
Right.
So, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I guess that was kind of a rib. Do you any other memorable rib stories?
Well, Jerry Briscoe. Oh, okay. I'll tell you. One of the greatest ones in the world is called Mabel. And we did this to a kid when we were running Toronto province. This new kid comes into the territory, and he starts getting, he's a good-looking guy and stuff, and he starts getting these letters from Mabel. You can use any name that you want to. That's the phrase that we use. And oh, hey, you're good-looking and stuff. I'd like to meet you sometime. And everybody's talking about, oh yeah, boy, she's beautiful and stuff, but you got to look out for the jealous husband. And so he keeps getting the letters and stuff, and finally, tonight's the night. Hey, I understand you're wrestling in Toronto. Why don't you come by the house? My husband's out of town, and maybe we can get together. And we always, everybody rode with each other. There was never you in a car by yourself. So Gene Anderson, I think the kid's name was like Joe Furr, and they go out to this house that's in the middle of nowhere, and go up and knock on the door. Gene says, oh, I just want to see her. I'll wait in the car. It's okay. So they knock on the door. Guy opens up the door. He's got a shotgun. He says, oh, you're the guy that's been screwing my wife. And so, boom, he fires the gun. Of course, Gene takes the bump off the porch. And Joe's, and the guy's gun happens to jam. And so Gene has the keys to the car, so the guy's got to run for it. And so we drive up and down the road all night long. Whenever we see the guy come out of the woods, we shoot guns up in the air. And the kid ran all night long. We get to the building the next night, and the what are they, mounted police, or what are the Canadian, Royal Mounted, the Mounties, and are over at the building wanting to know about the murder. And so we kind of tried to explain it to them, and they didn't find any humor in it, because this kid comes running into a police station. His clothes are all shredded. And he's talking about his buddy got killed. They go out to the house, and there's nobody there.
Right.
It's a vacant house. And, there was different jokes. Frank Morrell, that's who it was. Frank Morrell, he have one of the young guys come over to his house, and he'd get a wheelchair and sit his wife in it. His wife wasn't crippled. Mm-hmm. And so they're watching the ball game, having the beers and stuff, and Frank and his wife get into this argument, and it starts getting louder and louder. Finally, Frank's, well, I'll shoot you. And he goes over and opens up the door, takes the wheelchair, and dumps the wife outside, and leaving the chair inside. Right. And then it's, the wife said, oh, let me in. And Frank's going, oh, forget about her. Go on, drink your beer. So they run that for a while. Yeah. There's different stuff.
Right. There was something I wanted to ask about, because some people don't consider WCW like a continuation of the NWA. They consider it like a different company. What are your thoughts on that? Do you consider it like a linear company?
Well, when Vince's father died, Vince Jr. decided, well, he's going to, take over all the wrestling, and the other wrestling promoters can have the small towns, and Vince is going to take all the big ones. So that's when we started buying up the rest of the NWA. And so WCW pretty much was composed of the NWA territories. Mm-hmm. And, it's sort of existed in name. But WCW, we went with that. That was the Georgia television show, World Championship Wrestling, and we were Mid-Atlantic, so we needed a name that was big enough. And that's why we went with WCW. Yeah. And that was the known, 6:05 Saturday afternoon show.
Yeah. Oh, that's what everyone remembers. 6:05 Saturday, one of the longest running wrestling shows of all time.
Oh yeah, they had the Saturday morning, and then I think another one on Sunday. But that 6:05 had the audience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the old Turner Studios. I think it was on Techwood Drive or something. But the guys their dressing room used to be the offices, because they had their stuff on the secretary's desks and things, and that's where everybody would change out.
Yeah. Now, when Bill Watts came to work there for a little while, and he didn't last a long time, what did you think of Bill Watts? You think he fit in? Do you think he was good for the company?
Yeah, I mean, Bill was okay. He had his ways and stuff, and I don't know. He was good at what he did, but I just don't think he was very happy.
Yeah.
And it showed. I mean, he used to have his own territories and stuff, and now he was having to come to work for somebody else. And,
right, that'd be hard for anybody.
When you've been on the King of the Mound, and all of a sudden, you're second lieutenant, it doesn't make a lot of people happy.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the other question there, Incher?
There was a question on the message board. I don't have the guy's name right offhand, but at Starcade 93, Tony Schiavone actually mentioned...
Yeah, I mentioned that one when you were gone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
When you were fixing the stream. No problem.
Okay, well, I'll ask another question here.
Right.
Was there any event that you just hated to film?
No. Well, the Disney shows, we used to go down there, like every 9 weeks or something like that, and we'd shoot 4 shows a day down there. And it just got extremely repetitious. I don't think they used a lot of the shows or a lot of the matches and stuff. They were going to various Spanish stations and things, and it just got kind of tiring. But I got to work with a lot of the young wrestlers on their entrances and stuff, because they would come running by me, and after that particular show was over, I'd go in the dressing room and chew their ass out and say, listen, that's when everything in the show is focused on you coming into that ring. This is your opportunity for your presentation of your personality or your grudge, or, why are you there? And that's where I got Bagwell to start kissing his arms, and, just create their own personality. This was their time. Everything, the audience, the cameras, everything is focused on their interest for that, 15 or 20 seconds. But that got to be real boring.
What were some of the guys you felt like you really helped bring out their character, that maybe they were really lacking, and you were helpful in making them a good on-air character?
Well, this was back in the day when the television was sort of in its infancy, and so people didn't understand a lot about the entrances and the television side of it, and so I would go explain it to them. Any one particular, I'm not sure. I'm sure I affected everybody. Because it didn't matter if it was, the main event or the semifinal guy. If I didn't like his shit, I'd come tell him.
Right.
So, I hope you got a delay on this, don't you?
Yeah, it's cool.
Okay. Sometimes that locker room mouth comes slipping out.
There's one guy, when I used to watch as a kid, I always thought he really was Russian, was Nikita Koloff, and when I heard him talk out of character, it was really...
he had that down pat.
Yeah.
He had it down pat.
When we had him on, he actually, he said that he would use that, to some of the other wrestlers, and he would use it, whenever he'd go out to eat. And, did you see that? Did he, Did he pretty much live that character to make everyone believe he really was Russian?
He was great. He carried that all over. He was always concentrating on the business, concentrating on the presentation of his character and stuff, and he stayed with it. Mm-hmm. The bars, he covered that pretty well.
Yeah. The night Magnum TA was in the accident, what was that like? For everybody there.
Well, it was pretty bad. We were all up at Bennigan's, and he had called his wife and told him he wanted to stop and have a beer, and it was raining that night, and he was driving his Porsche, And he was headed home, and he hydroplaned and had his accident and stuff. I went to the hospital immediately, and him being paralyzed, I didn't want people coming in there and trying to get an autograph or something, or scaring him and degrading his physical. I didn't want him to get scared and stuff. So I hired the hospital security there, the off-duty officers, to guard his room. I had the hospital take off the doorknob when you went down the stairs. There was one door that opened up into that section of the emergency area, and I had the hospital take off the door handle on the inside of the stairwell so people couldn't come down the stairs. I used to stay there all night until the wives and doctors got there in the morning. I get to report, and then I'd go home. And they were giving him a bath one morning, and he started to get an erection. And we called back to the office and told him, the monster lives, the monster lives. So everybody's kind of afraid that he was going to be totally paralyzed. Mm-hmm. But that was a big loss to wrestling. He was a huge talent.
Yeah, definitely. Do you feel like he would have been world champion at some point?
I know he would have.
That's where you guys were building up to.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, champions don't last forever. Mm-hmm.
When Nikita took his place in the Crockett Cup, did you know that would get over so big? Nikita becoming the baby face, the Russian heel is now a fan favorite.
No, the fans did that. Nikita was a good talent. He's sort of like Flair. I mean, Flair is a baby face and a heel. It all depends on who he's wrestling.
Right.
And Nikita had that rare talent that you could do that with him. You put him against Nikita against Ricky Steamboat. Nikita's a heel. You put Nikita against somebody else, and now he's the baby face. So but he still wrestled the same way. He still he didn't change his character at all. It just people loved him, but they loved to hate him too.
Yeah. When going into the Nitro days, and when the NWO started taking off, did you see that as right away that this was going to be something really big in wrestling?
Yeah, it's most of the stuff. It's a fishing expedition. You put stuff out there and see what they like. Now, the NWO turned out big in the United States, but it wasn't big in Europe because that's what Hitler came out with. That was his new world order.
Right.
And so we go to Germany and stuff, and people didn't like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they wouldn't show up. But, I mean, you try stuff out. Some stuff works, some stuff doesn't.
Yeah. There's a lot of different, when Nitro started taking off, there's a lot more backstage, vignettes, and did you like all that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, see, there again, you're putting the fans into more of what's going on. Mm-hmm. You took them out of their comfort zone, and okay, here's the secret meetings that are going on, and they show them the whole picture rather than just the ring.
Yeah, open it up. Yeah. What did you think of Eric Bischoff?
He and I never really hit it off.
Yeah.
We were having a meeting one time, and we used to shoot at Center Stage in Atlanta, and we had people that were waiting there early in the morning, and I'm not sure what they ever did for a living, but they were always there, and so they would be the first people down around the ring, and Shaw was talking about, why don't you shoot good-looking people? And I said, you ever been to a wrestling match? We're kind of a blue-collar kind of sport. And so when I asked him if he ever been to a wrestling match, he exploded. And these people sit out there all day. They're not good-looking. And so we used to have models and stuff come in, and we'd salt the crowd with them so we had good-looking people. But there was one lady, we were up in like Maine or something. And she had one tooth in her mouth, front tooth. She had front row ringside. And she'd get nervous. She'd grab that tooth and just start wiggling her fingers on it. And I'd turn around, I'd shoot her, but they wouldn't take it. But, it was kind of like the thing we did with Tully Blanchard and Baby Doll. We did the contest of who's going to be Tully's valet. Mm-hmm. And we had all kinds of pictures and stuff come in. We even had one guy that was dressed up. He had like a little rock and roll outfit on or something, the way the Rock and Roll Express used to dress. And I came running in when I saw the picture. Stop the interview, we found somebody. And I showed Tully that, and he, but, that's when we used to have our airplanes. We had a couple of planes we flew the guys around with because we were running like 2 shows on Sundays, and we'd have the preliminary guys go to the town, and we'd fly the main event. We'd run one show like at 2:00 and the next one at 8:00, and we'd fly the main event. They'd work twice that day. Mm-hmm. So we brought Baby Doll in, and I started the shot. I start down at her ankles and start coming up and widening out. And back then, Baby Doll was, a thick woman. Mm-hmm. You ought to see her now. She's gorgeous. She has dropped all kinds of weight. Beautiful girl.
Mm-hmm. We just saw her in Charlotte.
Yeah. Yeah, I ran it. Did you see her this last Legends thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I almost didn't recognize her. She's half of what she used to be.
Yeah.
If or less.
Will you be at Charlotte this year at the upcoming NWA Legends Fan Fest? We got to give them a cheap plug here.
Yeah. Oh, hey, good job.
Yeah.
I like to go by and see the guys. That's the only time I get to see everybody.
Right.
So yeah, I
don't know if you're aware of this, but they started up NWA Charlotte just recently. And I think Ivan Koloff is the champion.
Ah, good. No, the guy gave me a call, and I'm in Myrtle Beach now, and I probably would have gone. I gave David the number. I don't know if he went over there, but there's some guy that even have I think Mid-Atlantic Wrestling, and I think somebody else is, because we didn't keep the copyright going, so somebody else has opened up his Jim Crockett Promotions. So
messed up though.
Yeah, people are grabbing at straws.
Yeah. I heard that you brought that Jim Crockett, like he doesn't really have anything to do with wrestling. Like he doesn't, after he
absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
He's down in Dallas, Texas. He and his wife and kids.
Does he just like kind of mad, or why doesn't it have anything to do with wrestling anymore?
Well, there's only so many wrestling organizations,
right?
And
like I heard, he doesn't even like to talk about it.
Well, probably not. I mean, hell, I don't watch it.
Right.
I'll stop occasionally, but I won't watch it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's sort of like watching your ex-wife going to bed with somebody else. I mean, what for?
Right.
I got nothing to do with it. Some of the guys are still around. I went to that TNA when they were in Charlotte. Mm-hmm. Now they're doing a good job. They tried to change stuff up, but they're sticking with the old formula. They've got good hard wrestling, and the guys that they've got in there. Hell, I can't even think of the names right now.
Sting's there. AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Kurt Angle.
Who's the black guy that used to wrestle for us?
Booker T.
Yeah, I ran into Booker T over there, and Booker T left Vince because he said, there wasn't any fun in it anymore. And that's one of the things, the guys. But we used to create matches. It was a group thing, because you'd be in a car and driving back from Norfolk, Virginia, or something in 5.5 hours, and you throw this stupid idea out, and start bouncing it back and forth across people, and that's where you start coming up with stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's it got to be fun because it got to be the character and stuff. But Vince's stuff is just so it's his way or the highway.
Right.
And so Booker said, it just wasn't fun anymore, and he's working with TNA now, and he's really liking it, and he's happy, and he's doing a good job, and he looks good.
Mm-hmm. I actually thought he was. He was. I actually thought this week on Impact he was the the most entertaining guy on the show. Was that last week?
Yeah, I mean he's got a lot of talent there. He's he's got a good mouth, and if you let him go and do his character instead of trying to lead him everywhere, because that just it takes away from what's going on. Mm-hmm. That's what got them there. That's what made them what they are is their character and their presentation. So you just kind of, this is where we want you to go. You don't tell them how to do it. Mm-hmm. With your interview, this is the town, this is your opponent, and they know their character, and probably the matches happened a couple of times, and you got the history there to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Now, some I was wondering about for like a lot of guys that were in WCW that had been in NWA for so long, and when they brought in Hulk Hogan, somebody that like people really thought of as like the WWF guy, was there any like problems there, or did you think he was good for a wrestler?
No, Hulk is a nice guy.
Yeah.
Well, if you ever sit down and talk with the guy, he's just people, and he's there. He understands that Hulk Hogan is not Terry Hogan, mm-hmm. and so when he does his interview, he does his match, that is his character, and if you tell him you want to, he needs to lose a match, well, it's going to be, somebody's not going to beat his ass and leave him laying in the middle of the ring. It's going to be something close where, maybe if he'd have kicked out a half a second more, he'd have won the match, or, you take care of your character. Mm-hmm. And it's business. That's all. It's not personality.
All right. Did you have something from the message board, Inchman?
Yeah, I actually did. Van from our message board. He wants to know how much info you were given, like to a finish of a match or any type of direction while you were filming something.
If it was something that needed to be emphasized, they would talk to me about it. I mostly just shot it off the hip. I didn't need to know.
Yeah.
I knew which way the program was going. As long as I knew who was supposed to win, I just made sure that everything they did was visible.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Yeah. He also.
I did it for 32 years. You hadn't got to tell me how to wipe my butt.
Definitely.
If you didn't know how to do it by then, you probably give it up.
Yeah. No, that's. That's. And I could tell the guys when they're setting up for something. Right. I mean, Christ, the guy goes into the corner, he hits the guy a couple times. He's going to grab his arm, and somebody's going to the other corner. The guy may switch on him, and he's going to go to the other corner. The guy's going to stumble out. He's going to get a backdrop or an arm drag, and then the guy maybe a Dusty Rhodes with the flying leg drop, or whatever specialty move this guy has. And so their routines. So I don't need to have somebody write the thing out for me.
Mm-hmm. What was the other question, Incher?
Oh, Van, he also wanted to know, like, what innovations in the way a match is shot do you feel you help, like, usher in?
How about the action? Beforehand, the first show that I ever shot, I've never been to a camera school, nothing. They showed me how to load 16 millimeter film one time, and you do that in a black bag. It's all by hand. The first time we did a match, there was some young guy that was working across from me, and he was all over the place, and they kept calling his camera. And I thought that was great. I wanted to be on. So that's when I just whatever. We didn't have any boundaries then, because sometimes I would even run around in front of the ring and go up on the rope and end up blocking a hard camera shot. And that's where we started setting in the boundaries of, the handhelds don't need to come around and be up on the front. You can come around on the floor, but you don't get in front of the hard cameras. We started setting up the rules about that. And, for the entrances and things, you didn't have the entrances in the studios, the presentations like that where you could develop the characters. This is stuff that we all did. And, being a handheld, that was me. And I would stop the guys from running past me. We put the action in wrestling.
Definitely.
So, yeah, I think it had a little effect.
Wes from Delaware, he wants to know, what was your scariest moment as a cameraman?
In some of those double-layered cage matches, and I'm on top of the cage, I don't like a lot of heights, and especially when they're throwing people at me. Or on well, I don't know, scariest. I wasn't scared till later. Oh, Sturgis. I'm on the ring. I got steel steps coming up. We're out in the field there, and we were sort of at the end of the Sturgis rally. It was the last weekend, and so a lot of the other bikers who had jobs left, and so a lot of the crowd that we had was pretty rough. And all of a sudden, I hear this big clang, and somebody has thrown this huge rock at the ring and hit these steel steps and knocked them away from the ring. And so I was like, oh, shit, I want to get my head busted in here.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it kind of passes. You're there to get the shot. If you get the shots, you got to put yourself in the way.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if you get scared about it, you don't need to be there.
Mm-hmm. The match we talked about earlier, the War Games, which is always
That's
always
one of the T-shirts I think I sent you.
Oh, really? Excellent.
Yeah, I think it was War Games 3 or something.
Oh, interesting. I'm keeping that one.
Oh, you dirty.
Well, I'll send you another box when I get back home. I get to my stuff.
That'd be awesome. Really appreciate it. We got a caller here. We got Jai on the line.
Hi, Mr. Crockett.
How you doing?
My question is, have you seen the movie The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
Do you think that a good movie would be about all the territories when it first began? Do you think that would make a good movie?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you had huge differences in personalities and stuff. I mean, like Gorgeous George. He would come out, and he was the first color in wrestling. He'd have the robe, and he'd have the blonde, the platinum hair, combed back, and his wife was his valet, and she'd come out with the lilac water spraying in, or the rose petals, and he'd throw out little brass bobby pins to the audience, and they hated him because they thought he was gay, which he wasn't. And he was the first color in the wrestling. But yeah, and you had, you know, the reason that a lot of wrestlers speak pig Latin is because the wrestling, a lot of it came from the carnivals. They would go from town to town, and the wrestlers, you know, wrestled each other, the same wrestlers, night after night, and in different towns, and they were talking pig Latin, so people wouldn't understand what they were saying. But you had these characters that were just starting. They were still around when we had our wrestling. I knew some of them. Wally Dusick, the guy who used to put up our ring, he and his Dusick brothers used to wrestle together for years, but he came out of Carnival. And he built the rings and stuff for us. But yeah, they were huge characters, but they were tough. Wally, they'd step on your foot and run their hands up under your rib cage and try to rip you apart. And back then, they didn't use a razor blade to cut themselves or something. They did it's called the hard way. You'd hit him enough times in his eyebrow, and he'd bleed. But after a while, you know, you get the scar tissue and stuff. So it was pretty tough. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a namby-pamby. It's a lot softer now.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually in Mick Foley's book, he talks a lot about that, where he actually asked Harley Race to cut him hard way during the match with Vader, I think.
Oh, Nick's tough. We shot to that. I'm surprised he's still walking around.
Yeah.
But yeah, when he would come down the concrete steps after somebody hit him, and we were down in Georgia somewhere. Somebody hit him, and he went into like a cow trough. And he's tough. We were there over in Germany, and he got his ear torn off in the ring. Mm-hmm. And they said, "Oh, okay, we'll take you to the hospital and sew it back on." And the tour was over, and everybody's getting ready to, you know, go back to the States. And he says, "You know, well, how long is this going to take? Oh, well, you're going to be in the hospital for 2 or 3 days. He said, "I'll forget about it." So he never had the ear sewn back on.
Right. He still doesn't today.
Yeah, well, we do the interviews, and an announcer would say something to him, and I can't hear you. And he'd hold it and pull his hair back, and there wouldn't be any ear there. But yeah, that's a man. There again, he's a tough bucket of nails.
Yeah, he's actually one of my favorite guys, Mick Foley.
Yeah, wonderful character.
Mm-hmm. Some of the during that period there, some people consider kind of the down period in NWA, WCW, but you had matches with like Sting versus Vader, and Vader versus Mick Foley, and you had Austin. There was still a lot of good stuff there.
Oh yeah, Steve Austin was a great talent too. Yeah, he's a very nice man. I like him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean Vader. There was a lot of talent there. I don't understand why they say it was a down period. Sometimes you've got what the people want to see. Sometimes you don't. You just got to fish till you hook it.
Yeah. But I mean, if you were watching wrestling, then I mean, you got to see some great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, our television audience was still there. Our ratings are always strong.
Mm-hmm. Did you think Steve Austin would eventually been like a top guy in WCW if he would have stayed there?
Oh, certainly.
I always felt
I'm glad they didn't magnify his personality as much as they did when he went to the Vince. I did enjoy what they did for him. They brought that part of his personality out because what you see over there, that's him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a sweet man. He used to travel around, had his dog with him. He's just a country boy down at heart. But slamming those beers up against his head. The way that he always told it is when you do something, you have to you overdo it. You have to accentuate your actions so the guy in the last row of the building knows what the hell you're doing.
Mm.
You take the beer can, you don't just put it up against your head. You roll your arm back as far as it'll go, and then you wham. So like I said, you're talking to the guy in the front row, and you're talking to the guy all the way in that back seat, so that everybody knows and they can see it coming.
Yeah. I heard once that Arn Anderson actually told somebody, like, when Austin was still in WCW, like, why don't we just make him, let him be, like whoever he was, outside of the ring, like he became Steve Austin, and like they thought that was, silly. You got to keep him like the stunning Steve Austin character.
Everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah. But and he goes somewhere else, he gets to change his character. Mm-hmm. I always thought in WCW anyway that was kind of like, guys built up a little slower, and it seemed like eventually he'd be like a top guy because he had the TV title and the U.S. title and tag team title. He was always like not quite a main guy, but he was a guy that they always pushed.
Well, he was headed that way.
Yeah. Did you have anything else, Joe?
Yeah. What did you think of Paul Levesque when he was working at WCW?
Who was it again?
Paul Levesque.
That's who became Triple H.
Oh, yeah. That was hilarious because they tried to make him, when he first came in to do the interviews, I think they were trying to make him a Frenchman. And he's supposed to talk with this French accent. And, of course, you retake an interview about the second or third time, and the French accent disappeared. And so we finally did away with that. But, yeah, he was a good talent. Very nice person. He was very agile, good wrestler, good man.
Mm-hmm. Were you in charge of some of the, not just like when you're filming the wrestling matches and the interviews, but like the vignettes that they would do? For example, the blue.
No, that I was always interested in the presentation of it, and I sort of left that sort of stuff up to other people. I had enough trouble, with my televisions and getting all the shows out and making sure stuff was visible. And if I had an idea, then of course I would present it. It was up to other people that we hired to come up with the ideas.
Mm-hmm. Well, one guy I want to bring up was Sting because he was a huge name in NWA, and then he changed his character and was a huge part of Nitro. What are your memories of Sting? Your opinions on him?
There again, a great talent, nice guy. He played, we did the show and pay-per-view on Huntington Beach. He was out there throwing the ball with my wife's nephew, and he's just a real human. Mm-hmm. And I was sorry to see when he tore up his knee. Where was it, like Texas, Beaumont, Texas or something? Mm-hmm. In the cage match, he was trying to get in. But, and then you got to change your character, and stuff gets old. So then we started having him appear here and there, and sort of becoming more of a heel than a baby face. And you just switch things around. You got to keep people interested.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Brad Anderson, he was going to try to call in, but I guess he was busy. But he did send me something he wanted me to ask you, was about the Mid-Atlantic years and any stories about Paul Jones and midgets.
Well, I don't know if I can tell this one.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. He wasn't sure if you...
There used to be a girl came down to the Park Center, and she was, I'm not sure why, but, she was in a wheelchair, and her legs didn't work, but her arms did. And I'm not sure what kind of perfume it is that she used to put on, but if she ever gave you a hug, you might as well take your clothes out and burn them. You'd never get that smell off. But Paul used to give her a ride home. And I was sitting in the office when this call came in. Paul would take this girl, and there was like a church at the bottom of the hill from where she lived. And Paul would take her out of the wheelchair. She'd grab all the tree limb, and he would make love to her. And sometimes she made him mad, and he'd leave her hanging in the tree. And she'd start yelling for help, and the neighbors used to come down and help. And, it happened so many times, the neighbors started calling in to her brother, said, "Hey, your sister's down in the tree." And I was sitting in the office when this guy's brother called in. My father put it on the speakerphone, and he was saying, "Please, Mr. Crockett, don't let Paul Jones bring my sister home anymore. He leaves her hanging in the tree."
Oh, man.
How about, is that a good enough story for you?
I think that's a great story. Thanks for that question, Brad Anderson.
Yeah, I need to call him. I need to see him when I get back in town.
Yeah.
We used to have a baseball team, the AA Baltimore team, and Cal Ripken played his rookie year for us. Mm-hmm. And my niece had breast cancer, and they do a fundraising thing each year. And this time they've got him coming down talking. And I used to do the still photographs too for the wrestling. And so I used to shoot all the headshots for the baseball. We had a wood ballpark, and I thought I'd left all the negatives over there where the ballpark burned down. So I thought all of that stuff was gone. Well, I'm moving out of my place in Charlotte slowly, and I've got in one closet the whole top of it is full of, I used to like to shoot slides. But my wife's going through some stuff, and she comes out with 2 sheets of negatives, and they're baseball players. So I go down and have the thing processed, and the first 3 shots are Cal Ripken from his rookie year. Mm. And it's I think it's like the 86 Southern League Championship team. And Eddie Murray's in there, and there's a bunch of guys. I'm not sure who all it is, but I think it's like the 12th of this month they're doing the fundraiser, and Cal Ripken's going to talk. So I'm going to take some of these pictures, there's contact sheets down there, and see if he can tell me who all these people are. Let him have some. I found one poster because in the spring, the mother team, Baltimore, used to send some of their players down. They kind of do a scrimmage sort of game. And I got a poster from where we were going to do one of those games. It's got Cal Ripken Sr. and Cal Ripken Jr. on it. And so I'm going to get him one of those, let him have some stuff.
Yeah.
But, I've got all kinds of stuff for the wrestling.
No, I know you were selling some of it on eBay. I think we talked to you about that before. But if you ever put some more stuff up on, just let us know, and we'll plug it on the show for you.
Yeah, I've got a gentleman, Bruce, who's helping me with that, mm-hmm. And he takes care of a lot of that stuff for me because I don't want to give out my number and things. Right. I don't need all those headaches.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your number's safe with us, so you don't have to worry about that.
Okay. Yeah, you don't want me to come looking for you. I'm not a nice guy.
Yeah, I was just saying, unless you make us mad. We do get a lot of people asking for numbers, but we do not give them out. But we had you on here for an hour and a half. I want to thank you for coming on. It's been a lot of fun. Maybe we can have you back sometime, because there's plenty more we can talk about.
All right.
Anything you want to tell everybody out there before I let you go?
Well, no. Yeah. Don't watch NWE or whatever it is. Don't watch Vince.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Thank you everybody for calling in. As Crockett Promotions and World Championship Wrestling wouldn't have been what it was without the great wrestlers and the talent that we had. I mean, they were the talent. All we did was present it. Mm-hmm. So thank them for letting me be who I was.
Yeah. Let everybody know. Go to NWALegends.com. They got the Fan Fest every year, and you come and you can hear a lot of stories, and you get to see all the guys. And if you go every year, you get to see a lot of the same fans. So it's a lot of fun to check out.
Yeah, it is. I like to go by there. You know, they do a good job, and like I said, it's a good chance to. They do bring in a lot of the old wrestlers and the names, and they do autograph tables all the time, and there's souvenirs and old matches they can buy there. They need to come by and see the legends.
Definitely. Well, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
This is Loverboy Dennis of the Midnight Express. You need to get on the InYourHeadOnline.com. It's great. I just got through doing a little interview with them. These are great guys here. Jump on there and see what they're up to.